guys. I want you all to imagine that you have a magic pill. This pill treats many of the chronic diseases and conditions known to man. It's currently unlike anything available at the moment. It makes you stronger. It increases your bone density. This magic pill increases your passion for life. It increases your cardiovascular fitness, your stamina, and your energy levels. Okay. Now, what if I was to tell you that this pill has no side effects whatsoever, and it actually doesn't cost you any money at all? Okay. Who'd be interested in taking that pill? A few people? Great. Now, you do have to invest one thing in this pill, and that is a bit of time. Okay? A bit of time and just a bit of passion into actually pursuing it. Now, we do actually have some of this pill later on for you later, guys. I've just got some behind my distraction. It's what I'm referring to as exercise. Okay? The fact of the matter is, if every doctor out there prescribed this as a treatment, okay, they'd all be out of business. Okay? It's just so good in what it can provide. And there's been undisputed research, undisputed evidence over the last 20 to 30 years that go back and date back to the benefits of exercise in treating, preventing a whole range of chronic diseases and conditions. So what I'm going to do today, I think I've got about 12 minutes or 13 minutes. I'm just going to give you some good usable stuff that you can take away from today. And from my background, a bit of my background is in cardiac populations, so I've seen some nasty stuff, folks, and I'll share some of that with you today. Just to educate you about potentially what could happen if you don't take the right road. And then we can talk about some steps in, how can you start applying these new things that you've learned into your life. Okay, it's all very important that you know the information, but if you don't apply it, then what's been the use of it? Okay. So one of the things I want to talk about is fat as a topic. Okay, because fat, a lot of people want to know about fat. Fat is something a lot of people are excited about. And I'll just see if I can draw a mini picture here, but I do have another picture, but I'll just draw one here. Now these are your abdominal muscles. Okay. Now if I were to pick an overweight male off the street, and he, say for example, he had a heart attack, and I had permission to do an autopsy on this gentleman and have a look what he looked like underneath. If I came down this way, okay, and took a photo from the side. Okay, that would be his skin, that would be his abdominal muscles, and you have a whole range of fat under there. Okay, if we had a yellow marker, I'd probably use yellow because that's the colour of it. Okay. Now, fat is something that we're all obsessed about in society, and something that we really need to start understanding. And for a male that has about that much fat, fat is normal. Okay, we need it to function. If we don't have any fat, we die. Okay, so we do need some form of fat. But in today's society, ladies and gentlemen, what we find is that it is highly overconsumed and highly, most people eat too much. So if we start applying that now into some of the things that we eat, into how it's converted into fat, I've actually got some stats down here that I was planning to have an overhead, but I'll just run you by them. Who here likes cheese? Who here likes ice cream? Who here likes chocolate? Oh, that just about covers everyone. Okay, let's run you through some figures. If you have got a cheese platter, and you eat a cheese platter, that has about 61 grams of fat. Now that's all good and well. What does that mean? It means, folks, that you have to walk for over 3 hours to consume that energy that you've just eaten. Okay, so for that short-term gratification, which may be about 5 minutes or 3 minutes or however long it takes you to eat that cheese, you have to walk for 3 hours to consume that energy. Okay? Now when I tell this to a lot of people, they say to me, geez West, I never actually looked at it in that light before. I never thought that such short-term gratification could actually cost me that much if I had to put it down to something. And in terms of ice cream, if you had 2 scoops of full cream ice cream, that's about 21 grams of fat, which equates to about 1.5 hours of walking. Okay? So if you're not walking 1.5 hours, then you don't really have any right to be eating that ice cream. Okay, now, I've got a sister, and she wants to be a model, and obviously models need to look good and all those kind of things. And she'll come back from a day, and she'll sit down with a big tub of ice cream and just pee out in front of the television. And she's got a mentality that it won't happen to her, and she's young, and her metabolism's up, and all those kind of things. But You know, I hate to break the news to her, but one day it's going to have its toll on her. So if you're one of these people who think it doesn't happen to you, I'm an exercise physiologist. It's actually the law of human physiology. Okay, so it will happen. So just be aware of that. Just a couple of examples. A third of a block of chocolate has about 24 grams, which is just over an hour and a half of walking as well. Okay, so it's I'm not saying don't eat any of this stuff. Okay, it's not all bad news. All right, you can actually eat it in moderation, providing you have a balanced and healthy lifestyle. Okay, great work. Okay, stats-wise, guys, who likes seeing the Americans get thrashed by Australians? Okay, I just borrowed a DVD the other day, and it was the Olympics, 2000 Olympics, and I was sitting there watching the Australians, the 4x100 metre relay, where the Australians beat the Americans by a couple of seconds, and I was up there just pumping my fists in joy because I love seeing that. Now, there is bad news, however, in terms of health and wellness, and this is something we don't want to beat the Americans in. Okay, folks, one in five Australians are obese. Okay. Now, obese is a term we use for someone who's grossly overweight. Okay, that's just a term we use. 1 in 2 Australians, folks, are overweight. Okay. Now, in terms of being the fattest nation on earth, we are neck and neck with the Americans. At the moment, we're behind them. Okay, they're a little bit fatter than us. However, if we look at the fat levels of our children, we actually have fatter kids than what the Americans do. So if trends keep going the way they're going, we're going to be the fattest nation on earth. It's not something that I personally would like to see as our trophy. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I come and chat to groups like such as yourselves, and I talk to a lot of people in health clubs, and I go to talk to people in the general public, and we let them know where we're at. Because if no one goes around and lets people know what's happening, then we're going to take that title, which is what we definitely don't want to do. Okay, now, folks, I want you to picture that as an artery. Okay, now, this is your heart, a very schematic diagram. I was never good at art, but here are your 4 chambers. Okay, and you have 3 major arteries coming around, supplying blood to your heart. Now, if I take a cross section of that artery, it's going to look like that. Now, in real life, folks, that's probably less than 1 millimetre wide, but I'm just blowing it up so everyone can see what's happening. Okay. Now, the bad news is for everyone in this room today is that we all have some form of build-up within our arteries. Okay, everyone in this room does, including myself, including Adam, everyone in this room. When I say build up, what I mean is the accumulation of fat or the accumulation of calcification or plaque on the walls. Okay, it's when it becomes greater than 70%, it's when it starts to get serious. Now, is that a little bit too late to start realising what's going on? Okay, unfortunately, folks, 70% is about the time when we start to feel something's wrong. When I say start to feel something wrong, I mean things like we walk up a flight of stairs and we feel really out of breath. Or one day we just go walking and we start feeling pain coming through our chest. We start feeling pain radiating out of our arms. We have absolutely no idea where that's coming from. Okay. If I was a betting man, I would say that at least one artery in your heart or in your cardiovascular system was at least 70% clogged. Okay. Now, you can get lucky from there, and you can actually reverse that by taking exercise and seeing a doctor, and he gives you pills and all sorts of things. However, if you still do nothing about it, what can then happen, folks, is what we call an MI or a heart attack. Okay. Now, if that's your heart, unfortunately, you can't choose where you have your heart attack. Okay. If it happens here, I consider you to be very, very lucky because you only lose that part of your heart. Okay, so you might go to hospital, you'll still live, okay, but your heart will be very significantly reduced in its function, and those heart cells will never, ever, ever come back to be fully functioning again. If it happens up here, folks, okay, where the branches happen, that's called a fatal heart attack, okay, where you don't make it through. Because if you lose this amount of your heart, okay, obviously the heart is one of the core organs in your body. You can't actually work without it, okay. So I'll just bring that to your attention and the importance of worrying about things like fat levels, because they all have a compounding effect on each other. So that's all good and well. That's the physiology. Let's do a check on where you guys are at really quickly. Now, I'm an exercise physiologist, and what we look at is we look at risk factors in terms of heart disease before we actually work with someone. Okay, we work with someone, we find out where they're at before we can start doing something for them. So I'm not going to get everyone to put their hand up, okay, because obviously I just want you to do a bit of a mental check in your head and see where you're at. Now, if you say no to all of these, you're low risk because you have nothing wrong with you, apparently. Okay. If you have one of these risk factors, considered to be medium risk. And folks, if you have 2 or more, considered to be high risk. Now, I just want to warn you that if you do have 2 or more, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, I don't want you to be pulling your hair out thinking, geez, I'm going to have a heart attack tomorrow. Okay? Please don't do this to alarm anybody. But do this to bring to your attention where you possibly may be headed if you don't start doing something about it. Okay? Because as I said, I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in cardiac rehab wards, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people go through nasty, nasty cardiac events, which I don't want anyone here to go through today. Or if there is anyone here who has been through something, I don't want them to go through it again. Okay? Because it's been said that having a heart attack is being the equivalent of being hit by a Mack truck. Okay? It shakes you up a lot. Okay, so risk factors, what are they? Okay, if you smoke, just give yourself a little mental tick in your head. Okay? If you have diabetes, give yourself another tick. If you're currently physically inactive, and no, work doesn't count, walking upstairs at work doesn't count, okay? If you have a family history of heart disease, okay, so if your parents or your grandparents, they've all had heart attacks or strokes, okay, it's not your fault, but that's considered a risk factor. Okay, if I want to pull 2 people off the street, and one who's both parents have died of heart attacks and one who hasn't, I'd know who I'd put my money on and who's going to live longer. Okay. If you have high cholesterol levels, give yourself another tip. Age. If you are a male greater than 30, or a female greater than 40, again, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, folks, but they are factors that have been proven to be conducive to heart attacks. Okay? Give yourself another tip. Now, have I missed anything out? 1, 2, 3. Oh, by the way, there's just one more. High blood pressure. If you've ever been diagnosed with hypertension or high blood pressure, which is a figure of 140, 120 over 80 is normal. High is considered to be 140 over 100. So for those of you who know your blood pressure, if you've been diagnosed with blood pressure greater than 140 over 100, that's another risk factor. Okay? All right, let's get back to this. You got none, give yourself a pat on the back, doing a great job. Alright? If you had 1, that's alright, not doing too badly. Okay? And if you had 2, then we as exercise physiologists classify you as being in the high risk category. Now, as I said, don't go out there screaming you're going to have a heart attack if you are above 2, because there are things you can do about it. Okay? There are certain steps you can take to significantly reduce a lot of these. So for example, if you've got really good cholesterol levels, you're -1. If you're regularly exercising, that counterbalances a lot of these. Okay, but if you're not, and it's time that I'm here today to say, wake up, let's do something about these. Okay, all the money, all the wealth in the world, you'd trade in a second for your health. Trust me. Okay, some stats really quickly and what's happening around the world.